So to start, I'm gonna tape my thirds. I use a tape measure to measure. You can use a ruler. You only need to go 12 inches because your thirds are every 12 inches on the 6-foot pole. But I'm just gonna quickly show you where I tape. So from here to here is 12 inches. So I'll tape here. And then from here to here. And then I don't need a tape over here because that's the tab, but I'm just gonna do it because I know it'll give me a better idea a little bit later on if I am taping correctly or not. And then these tapes are just splitting every 12 inches. And then if you're measuring with a 12-inch ruler, it always splits the numbers. And to actually tape over your tabs, you'll go around once, then you'll start twisting your tape. And then tape over it. And that is your tab. That is your tape. So I have finished taping this half of my flagpole with thirds. I'm going to be putting my flag silk over these 2/3. The reason being is this flagpole is going to be taped black. Usually we tape our flagpoles black. Sometimes they get taped a different color. I do not like taping over my thirds when they're done. So you'll see I've taped these thirds a little differently because they're not bumpy at all. I've just gone around the pole 3 times here. So when I tape over my flagpole to make it black, I'll still have my thirds marked, but I will still have to do the other style of thirds over it so I know where they are. I just don't like how the tape lays over the thirds when I do it that way. It's definitely a personal choice and it doesn't matter which one you do. So after you have your thirds taped, your next step will be to retape your pole. I normally start on the tab half. Just go a little bit above where tab's supposed to be. And you're gonna lay one strip all the way down the pole, making it as smooth as possible. I always take a really long time to do this. It's okay. I just get picky about how it lays. And then once you're down to the other side, instead of ripping off the tape, you're just gonna go straight up and over. Back to the other side. Now that I have my pole taped over, if you did not tape your thirds earlier, tape them now. If there's bubbles in there, sometimes I take a safety pin and poke them to get the bubbles out of the tape. It's not that big of a deal, they won't be noticed from afar. And then I'm gonna do maybe like 6 inches on the very top of this pole, just so that way if any of the silk casing doesn't cover it up completely, I won't know that the pole is silver. Now that your pole is taped, your next step will be to tape your bolts. You're just gonna take a little bit of tape, go around here, and you're just gonna spiral around it. Your tape should be thick enough that when it goes into the pole, it's gonna be hard to get into the pole, and it's gonna not move around at all. This is important so that way your flag does not rattle when you catch it or spin it at all. And it'll also help make sure all the weights are the same and all the poles, because if one person's bolt is weighted like this and someone else's bolt is taped like this, it's going to be 2 different weights. This one definitely feels heavier because there's more tape on it. So your next step is to tape your crutch tips. So to do that, you're going to make a little plus sign on the top. With the tape. They're not super long pieces of tape, they're just enough to cover the top. And once you've made your plus sign, I always make a little X on top of that. So the whole top of the crutch tip is covered. Taping like this helps prevent sails in your flag, and it's just personally, I think it's cleaner looking. And then you'll do this to both crutch tips. So the next step is to add your bolt. BDB is your bottom bolt, BLA is your top bolt. Short one's always on the bottom, long one's always on the top. There's electrical tape so covering the bottom of this, so I just use the bottom of my bolt to puncture a hole in it. It's kind of hard to do. Sometimes I use scissors. Put a little piece of tape on here so that way I know that it stays in. You don't have to do this, a lot of people don't. Then you'll put your crutch tip over. And then to tape your crutch tip on, you start up here. Spiral around, overlapping a little with the tape that you've previously put down. Once you're halfway on, halfway off, I like to just go all the way around once, halfway on, halfway off. And then I go all the way around once, all the way off. And your crutch tip is on. So your next step is to add on your flag silk. Sometimes you can do this after you've attached your top crutch tip. I always just do it before, because sometimes the casing is not big enough to slide up and over. So you're just gonna go slide up and over, making sure that the curve of your flag is going at a downwards angle. If it's upside down, it's very obvious. And then I'm gonna tape it up here at the top of the pole, and then I'll tape it at the tab to make sure that my flag's fully extended. When you tape it at the tab, you'll want to make sure that your casing is completely straight and that there's no twists, because if the top half of your flag's here and the bottom half of your flag's here, it's not going to work very well. Okay, so to tape the flag silk at the top, I put in the bolt, put a little piece of tape over it, put on the crutch tip. I have not taped over the crutch tip yet. You're able to do this in either order. I just do the crutch tip second. But you're going to put tape a little bit over, tape over this tab, flip it down, tape over the tab, flip it up, tape over, flip down, and now that it's completely taped, we're nice and done with that. Then we'll tape over the crutch tip. The same way that we taped the bottom crutch tip. And then you'll want to make sure that your casing is straight on this side. And we'll do the same thing that we did at the top. Tape it over, flip, tape, flip,